Welcome to partialarc.com. Don't do that.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. And a lot of weird shit. Roll to seize!
Welcome to Roll to Seize. This is episode 8. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and I'm joined by my co-host and Warhammer enthusiast, Andrew Dickinger.
Hurrah!
Hello, Andrew. Guys, here we are after some crazy shenanigans over the last month of a new surprise codex has hit the market.
Harlequins.
Harlequins are back, murder death clowns in their own full codex.
I mean, they're literally killer clowns from outer space.
They are killer clowns from outer
That
space.
80s movie is coming back
in
a big way.
Somebody watched that on repeat one weekend, and they came into the office. They're like, guys, we gotta do this.
I know this is out there. Just bear with me. Clowns from outer space.
You know, they heard our episode about the cod pieces and the Harlequin kiss, and they were like, we've got to make this a full codex. We've got to embrace this completely.
It's still the most terrifying thing that's come out of Roll to Seize.
Yeah, it really is.
The Harlequin's kiss.
And if you don't know what we're referring to, listen to episode 7 and be terrified. But, I mean, it's interesting because this is the first time they've been kind of rolling out a codex in, like, slow phases, I feel like, with, like, new units. Meanwhile, none of us still don't know, about a month in, what any of these things really do, from, like, their special items list to their formations, special rules, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, I mean, they sort of teased with this type of release with, like, what they did with the tail end of Tyranids. Mm-hmm. Like, just sort of like, here's another unit, and another unit, another unit. Like, okay.
Who likes dropouts? What about zoanthropes?
Yeah,
it's like, wait, what's happening here?
Yeah, it was just like, okay, I mean, I won't say no to this.
Yeah, right. Keep, please, sending me more units for the army that I like.
I will happily say, though, that out of all of the forces of this surprise codex of what it would have been, Harlequins was not on my top 5, nor was it on my, like, top 20.
Of, like, well, this is definitely going to be a thing, right? Like,
I mean, if somebody told me Harlequins, I'm like, you're full of shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
we were sitting around, we were like, oh man, what's it going to be, this secret codex? Like, we were kind of fingers crossed for, like, Kroot.
Tau allies?
Yeah, that would have been really cool if they just got their own codex. Although we might be in the minority. Many people are like, no, we want Imperial Fists, our own codex.
Yeah, I mean, like, how can you not like chickens from outer space?
They're great.
In the 40k universe, the chickens eat you!
It's fantastic. And to give them their own codex, and also, like, the Tau have a lot of weird allies. Like, we've talked about this before on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, they even have, like, squid people allies.
Squid people, they've got, like, rock people, don't they?
Rockmen.
I mean, like, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do with that.
Dog people.
Although I feel like at a first glance, you'd look at that allies army, and it'd look like a chaos army. You'd be like, what are all these colors and shapes attacking me right now?
I mean, that is true. Like, you wouldn't have that universal congruency other than maybe, like, the Tau armor and Tau colors.
Yeah, the rocks are running at you with, like, one piece of Tau armor on their chest.
Like, we're totally Tau. It says it right there.
It's like, look, I've got the T-A-U.
Badge. I got that merit badge, the Tau merit badge.
We talked about how Tau's pretty dark with their Vespids. Maybe they've branded all of the rock people?
I mean, maybe.
Or engraved, I guess.
It's for the greater good, Jay. I just did air quotes.
Good. It's just a zombie rock squid army.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right.
Which sounds pretty great.
With killer chickens from outer space.
With killer chickens from outer space leading the way. The Kroot they're not like the Vespids, right? The Kroot are actually pretty sentient. They know what's going down.
They were the first race that the Tau had made contact with, and they were under siege by the orcs.
And after years of only barbecuing them, they were like, guys, these guys can actually fight.
Yeah.
We should take advantage.
But yeah, they're coherent. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't have any, like, devices like mysterious
devices.
Control devices that the Vespid
We
wear.
love Tau now. Oh, Jerry was totally against them yesterday, and now he's feeling fine.
But it is
helmet.
fully prohibited for Kroot to eat Tau.
You know what? I'd probably feel like that was in the agreement when they were down there. Like, guys, we want to work together. One small note, though, a little addendum we made here is don't eat any of us. That would be really nice.
No eating of Tau. It's all
okay. I don't know what Kroot sound like. Does anyone do that? Does anyone know? If you know, actually, please email us. Well, we'd love to know. Rolltoseize@gmail.com. If you have any recorded voice sound bites, that'd be awesome.
Oh, I think didn't we hear Kroot in the Dawn of War game, right?
Was there?
And they're like, let me see if I can try.
Oh my god, Andrew's about to do a perfect representation of Kroot right now.
They're like, Kroot, we're bred for battle. I mean, that's terrible.
I think that was pretty spot on, actually. I think that's what space chickens sound like.
I mean, they're very like guttural, like you'd expect a bird to be.
Right, makes sense. They've got a lot of pebbles in there. You know, birds, they eat a lot of stones to help them digest. Kroot they're just eating stones all
just
day.
Like they talk.
Oh my god, you know what?
Stones.
That's why the Tau Allies doesn't work, because the Kroot would be eating the stone people all day.
That's true.
You know what? That's why it's not happening. Guys, we've cracked it right here on Roll the Seas podcast. What were we here to talk about? Right. Guys, every month we do our Seasons of the Month, where we talk about how Andrew and I have screwed up hardcore in a game of Warhammer 40k. Andrew, please kick things off with your Season of the Month.
All right, so, I mean, you may not know this by now, but I'm not the biggest fan of Space Marines.
What?
Specifically bike Marines. There's a lot of bike Marines right now.
That's very surprising. But I'll take your word for it.
But in the last game in the last tournament I was playing, so I was playing against a bike Marine army, and I was playing with my Tyranids. The first mistake I made was I didn't realize I should just never have my Hive Tyrant as my warlord. That's just a mistake in all respects. Like, I have a Turvagon, because I run, my Highlander army, which is basically just all individual monsters and stuff like that. And I have the Turvagon as an option as another character that can be my warlord.
Right.
And the Turvagon never, in all of the games that I've played, I think he's only ever once taken 1 wound.
Wow.
So, because, I mean, when you have 8 monstrous creatures coming at you and
you
he's
have to start
standing
prioritizing
in the back,
things.
You're going to be like, am I going to go for the 6 wound toughness 6 thing and cover, or am I going to kill the murder sauruses in front of my face?
Yeah, that's about to kill all of my guys. Priorities tend to come into play at that point.
Exactly. So it's just like, I should always just make him my warlord, and then I'll never have a Slay the Warlord problem on my army.
That's true, and that's one. I mean, man, we've all run into cases where 1 point has decided a game.
I mean, like, how many times has First Blood been the decider? And it's just like, that's the worst feeling ever. It's like, oh, you managed to kill a thing first before me, and that's how you won the game.
Ugh, sad.
But yeah, so I should never make him my warlord. But here's what I did wrong. I was playing a kill points game. It was practice for the Bay Area Open, or not the Bay Area Open, sorry, the Frontline Gaming LVO, the Las Vegas Open, which I did not go to, but our club was doing specifically a test for people that were going, just so they could continue to practice for the tournament.
Right.
And so I think it was mission 5 or something was kill points. And when you have basically nothing but monstrous creatures or a 30-man Termagant squad in cover, like, kill points are really hard to come by against my army. And by the end of 4th turn, like, I was only like 1 or 2 kill points down, and I had like 4 or 5 on him. And I made the mistake of not reserving my Hive Tyrant. I decided that after, I was like, I completely forgot it was kill points. I'm so used to not playing kill points that I basically just threw him right out there. I was like, maybe I'll kill that bike squad that has 3+ cover and like
right.
tons of saves. And
This will happen.
With only 12 shots, it's totally gonna work. And I did that instead of just flying him off the board and preventing my enemy from not only getting Slay the Warlord, but also getting another kill point. So it was like a double whammy situation, and just put him like right in the center of my opponent's army, like surrounded by 5 bike squads, a Sakaran tank, and then an incoming flyer with Monster Hunter. Like, it was...
Yeah, there was a pretty high chance that he was going to get murdered.
I mean, like, but just a little bit, but, I decided, what the hell? And it ended up costing me the game. I lost by 1 kill point, and it was that one guy. And then I lost in tertiary because I didn't get his warlord, and he had warlord on me. So it's just like, in every respect, it was a mistake. I should have just played smarter, paid attention to the game. Once again, pay attention to the objectives you are playing.
Right. We all get caught up a lot in like, okay, what was I doing? Doesn't matter. I need to kill that thing. I need to kill that thing. That thing looks scary. Let's do this. Like, the game is that battle and intensity, but you gotta remember strategy, guys. It's a huge part of the game.
Yeah, you just can't get caught up in like the wanting to kill things. Like, you gotta just, unless you just don't care about winning.
Unless you just want to kill things.
Yeah,
because Warhammer 40k is a great universe and game to do just that.
I mean, there's definitely lots of murder in 40k.
Oh, yeah. So that's definitely a great point. I mean, always keep in mind the actual mission objectives and the strategy around that for sure.
Yeah, so that was my C's. What about you?
So my C's of the month is a little bit interesting for our episode today, and that's because I'm kind of doing a little bit of a throwback. And the reason why I'm doing that is because of some recent trends that have been coming into play, not only with how I play, but how I've kind of been seeing a lot of people have been discussing new codexes and new armies as of recent. And my C's of the month is around about a while ago when Eldar was first making a change from 5th edition to the 6th edition codex. Now we're in 7th edition. So right away, why are we talking about this? Well, as of recent, Necrons has gotten a new codex. Harlequins just came out with a codex. Warhammer is been in this new phase now where we're getting codexes constantly updated. And for diehard fans that have played this game for years, like Andrew and I, that wasn't always the case.
Oh, no, you'd wait like 4 or 5 years for a new codex. In the case of Dark Eldar, it was like 20 years.
Right. While recently it seems like someone shot the makers of Games Workshop with adrenaline and they're just like working hardcore to pump out new codexes. And what this has kind of caused recently is a change in people's strategies, but abruptly, quickly. And, there's a little bit of resentment there because, a lot of times it's pretty expensive to invest in some of parts of this hobby, such as the models and the cost of those models, and you've got a good army down. It takes a little while to kind of suss things out, and you finally get a good core army, and then a new codex releases, and that kind of throws the whole thing off.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing worse than suddenly having a unit that you loved suddenly become unusable, or like we like to do, just much more difficult and less forgiving.
Right, and this is something I've struggled with a lot. So my C's of the month is a little bit of a throwback, kind of when Eldar first shifted from 5th edition codex to 6th edition. And also with the big change to psychic powers, this really threw off my army. I tried to use an old Eldar formation that I had because I loved it. I really liked the amount of psychers I had. It wasn't many, it wasn't too little, but it just wasn't enough to fit the new form that is right now, as well as the old, way that I ran walkers and just in general how I formed my army. It didn't fit with the new codex, and I was very, kind of stubborn to sit with that old style. I didn't really want to conform. So my C's is more of a general C's, essentially, is that with these new changes, it's really normal for people to get caught up in how big if they've changed their current army. But what's really nice about this game is they're always kind of shifting things and keeping you on your toes, and you can get really strategic. I mean, a lot about our podcast here is finding strategic and fun ways to make really silly or useless, or what people term as useless units, fun and interesting again. So, for example, when the Necrons Codex recently came out, and they made a big change to Tesla, and I love Tesla, I was like, I can't use any of these guys anymore, I'm just going to throw this away and burn everything. But then, as the month goes on, as you dig in a little bit further, you're like, Doomblades. Those are kind of cool. They've basically for 10 points, I can give them 15 upgrades. That makes them awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a huge change. And it's so funny, too, because, like Kroot, most people don't like the look of Tombblades, and we love the look of Tombblades.
We're really in the minority because we really love how they look. They're like gyroscopic bikes. They're awesome.
Hover bike things, like, they're crazy. Like, when you think a bike, you don't think a half moon or a circle moon shaped hover thing where they're leaning forward and stuff like that.
I love it so much.
But yeah, they got a huge buff.
And, people who love Wraiths, which is a lot of Necron players, they got a pretty nice buff.
Wraiths got buffed. I don't really know why. They were already arguably the strongest unit in the Codex, and they just got better for no cost increase.
Right. So after kind of reviewing that Codex and me taking some time and being like, okay, I can't necessarily run the same style that I did before, but there's a lot of cool stuff in here. And so my C's of the month is less of a specific instance where either I blew up my own units or I didn't look at something specifically. It's looking at a bigger strategic view here, and that's look at your army as kind of an ever-changing ebb and flow. Like war, if we really want to get out there and big with it, wars are always changing. You always have to change your strategies. So I'd like, myself and anybody else that kind of struggles with this to try to put a new perspective on when those new codexes release and really just say, what can I do here? What's fun now? And let's see what we can do with this.
And I mean, like I'm no different. I mean, as you have always been resistant with the game, with the changes. Like, I remember when Flyers first came out, and we were like,
what is this shenanigans?
Get this shit out of here, because that was specifically, like Apocalypse-only units, and we didn't like that. Like, it was essentially a completely new dynamic to the game. Then as time went on, it was, like, not as big of a deal. Now there are super heavies in the game.
Right, we have our own opinions
reserve
about super
judgment
heavies.
about that. But the major difference, the hardest thing for me to adapt to online with that is the change from the standard like detachment format, 1 HQ, 2 troops minimum. Like that's like from how long have we played?
Gospel forever.
Yeah,
it's like I only know one thing: 1 HQ and 2 troops.
Yeah, and then you like fit everything to that format of 3s and stuff. 3 heavies, 3 elites, 3 fast, and everything. And that's what's been completely essentially thrown out the door. Not in the sense of Unbound, but with the sense of formations,
right.
and multiple detachments. So suddenly you can do an army that's still battle forged. It's not Unbound, so it's legal in tournament setting, but it's literally nothing but formations. No restrictions other than what's in the formation. So you could have something like you were saying with like your Necrons, like normally, this unit can't use anymore because this one's better in that area. Well, it's like, you just take one in that area and one in that area. Like, you can literally make an army anything you want at this point.
Exactly, and it adds a lot of flavor. And Andrew and I are big players on flavor,
fluff,
and
all
fluff.
The way.
So it does provide a lot of that fun there, and definitely like with Necrons, they've added so many new formations, so you can really go nuts with some of the crazy stuff they've got there. So guys, Season of the Month, just really try to, break down those barriers of stubbornness and resistance to change and really try to embrace some of the new stuff that's out there.
Be
adaptable, guys. You need to be in the game anyway. You might as well be with the overall structures of your armies. All right, guys. Well, that was our Seasons of the Month, and that'll take us into hanging out with Greg in the Brown Library. All right, guys, we're here in the Brown Library. I'm trying to be very quiet as Andrew and I find a corner here because there are passed out Harlequins everywhere. I think with the new release and kind of the new PR that they're getting, the Harlequins threw a huge party, and it is disgusting, and it is... I don't know if you have ever met a hungover Harlequin. They are pissed. So we need to kind of sneak off to a corner real quick here and try to find a section away from these murder clowns.
I thought that they were, that clowns from space wouldn't be huge alcoholics, but then I realized I have no idea what that is they're drinking, and it smells terrible.
All right, I think we found a safe corner. So, Andrew, what have you found here in the Brown Library this month that we can chat about?
All right, so I did really dig down deep for this one. This was from an army that I literally know fuck all about. I know nothing. I know it's not a real popular army. They didn't even get a legit codex with like new units. They still have metal models that for sale on Games Workshop's websites.
Ooh.
And that army is Sisters of Battle.
Oh my god, Sisters of Battle. That's right, that is an army.
Yes, Adeptus Sororitas as it's called now because
is
they
it
have
really called Adeptus Sororitas?
just like they did like instead of Imperial Guard, they're just trying to confuse everybody, I think. Make it sound shiny.
Look, Sisters of Battle was so popular before, they figured, well, look, we really got to cut down on these sales. We got to make it more difficult for people to find Sisters of Battle. Let's just change the name completely.
In a nutshell, Sisters of Battle are basically nuns in outer space. Battle nuns from outer space.
It sounds like a great idea. Now, where did this recommendation for Sisters of Battle for our topic today come from?
So, once again, it came down to the polls on our Dakka of Dakkas forum, essentially our underused units forum. It was a tight battle between Sisters of Battle orcs and Dark Eldar, but Sisters of Battle just eked ahead at the last second.
Oh, God.
And so I was like, good, that's interesting. I have no idea what the hell.
Good. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about.
But there was one unit in particular that stood out for me. It's always been kind of a unit, like, in my loose association with that army that I've liked, and I've never seen anyone use before.
Really?
In the few, 1 out of 60 times I've seen Sisters of Battle, it's not been there. But what this thing is called is a Penitent Engine.
Penitent Engine? Now that sounds cool.
In a nutshell, when somebody does something super fucked up, they take the person, they're like, no, you don't even get death as a response to this. You get jammed into this device that basically, when you're not in the carnage of combat, just being tortured relentlessly.
In this, like, you're just kept alive, constant torture.
It got a life support system, and then it's plugged directly into your spine to literally, when you're out of combat, when you're not fighting, to be feeding you pain constantly.
Oh my god.
And images of all the fucked up things you did.
Jeez, man. I gotta say, the writers of some of these codexes are pretty pissed off.
Yeah, I mean, like, wow. Like, I mean, it takes just, like, what's the term for capital punishment to just a new degree? I mean,
oh my god, that's terrifying. So basically, I guess the idea behind this is it's pushing people in these penitent machines to always want to be in combat.
Well, I mean, it's seek penance for what they've done, and their penance, of course, it's because it's grimdark, is absolute carnage towards their enemies.
Right, of course it is.
I mean, because
not like going to your neighbor's house and be like, I baked you some cookies.
If you're not killing your enemies in 40k, you're doing it wrong, kid. So what this thing is essentially like a weakered armored dreadnought.
Okay.
It's only 11-10 armor, so it's not that tough. And it's also open top, so it's also not that tough.
It's not that tough because the dude inside is getting murdered all the time.
It's just like a batshit crazy because he's being tortured constantly.
Most of the machines, the armor is pretty light because most of the machines inside are dedicated to stabbing the individual.
Exactly. Yeah, the damage is directed inwards, not outwards. So this thing, it comes stock. It's an 80-point unit.
Okay.
It comes stock with 2 dreadnought close combat weapons, so it's strength 10, AP 2 in close combat. Not bad.
Okay.
It also comes stock with 2 heavy flamers, so it can, do some roasting up close.
Gotcha.
It has rage, surprisingly.
I don't know about if it's surprisingly that they have rage.
Sorry, it has rage in the sense that it's a dreadnought with special rules.
Right, that is interesting. But with its fluff, it does make a little sense.
So rage, if you don't know what rage means when it charges, it gets 2 attacks instead of 1 on the charge.
Which is nice.
So this thing actually tops in at, I think, it's 3 plus the extra 4. So it's 6 attacks on the charge.
Jeez.
So it's actually not bad. I think it's weapon skill 5, too.
Wow.
Its only downside is initiative 3. So against, like, even regular dreadnoughts, it'll be striking after them. But, when you have a 10 or a 20-foot tall murder machine with 6 attacks on the charge at strength 10 AP2, that ain't bad. They also have 3 hull points, so they're not that bad in that respect.
That's true.
They also have a really cool ability called Unstoppable. Unstoppable means that they have extra armor in, or even better, they have the living metal rule, essentially, but it's automatic.
Really?
They ignore all crew shaken and crew stunned results.
So basically that's why they're called unstoppable, because they just cannot be slowed by anything.
They just go, man.
I gotta punch somebody, man, or this thing is gonna keep stabbing me. Yeah. I've gotta do something.
And the other interesting thing about this unit is that they can be run in units.
What?
You can have up to 3 in a single unit.
Because there's nothing like suffering together, guys.
Group suffering is the best snuffering.
Snuffering? That's what they call it. We call this group snuffering. They have to give it fluffy terms because it's probably bumming out most of the space nuns if they're constantly talking about their murder.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta keep it on the
machines.
down low,
Guys, it's just a help box. That's what it is. You want to go sit in the help box, you're going to feel helpful to the Sisters of Battle, and everybody feels better for it.
What's even more ironic is that sisters, as like a rite of passage, are pseudo forced to watch these things go into battle. So like it just gets, shared suffering just gets even worse.
If you want to own a really depressing army, get Adeptus Sororitas now.
Yeah. There's a cool thing with Sisters of Battle too that I didn't know. So they used to have these things in the old codex. They had these things called faith points.
Okay.
Where like for a turn, the faith points used to be like they had a certain amount. Mm-hmm. I think the general army had like 3. And if they expend it, they would get like, the whole army would get like an army-wide buff for a turn.
Interesting.
I
like the idea of expending faith points to give them a buff. It's like, wait a second, is God real? Boom!
Faith being rewarded.
Are you sure they shouldn't be called atheist points?
Yeah, in the most literal sense. Yeah, so they now have transferred that to these unified special rules that now it's lost a little of its fluff a bit, but certain units have a certain ability that they can expend once per game now. But the board wide, the army has what's called the Shield of Faith, which is, it's not so great. It's a 6+ invulnerable save.
Okay.
So everything in the army has a 6+ invulnerable save.
It's like constant go to ground if they're out in the open.
I mean, it's not terrible. You think about it. I mean, it's a save against anything that'll save 1 in 6 times. But if it's that 1 in 6 shot that kills a thing, like a Penitent Engine, I mean, then it just made back its weight in gold, essentially.
Right.
And in that same sense, when you have a group of these things, that they all have invulnerable saves, assuming that they're not collecting cover saves. I mean, it's still a save on a walker regardless, which is good.
Oh, yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And for 80 points a model, it's not bad. Like, essentially, the army had to be focused around these things. And when I was trying to think of an army list name for this thing, I was like, what could it be? Well, they're nuns in space. And
in space!
And these are essentially like dunce chairs. The army is called Corporal Punishment.
Oh, God.
Corporal Punishment is coming back in a big way. It's galactic wide, and it kills you.
Oh, God. Corporal Punishment reporting for duty.
So essentially, you just have a bunch of angry nuns. They're taking you back to catechism school, and if you misbehave in any fashion, you get stuck in a giant torture device.
Now, you can get hit with a ruler on your knuckles or stuck in this torture machine. What do you want to do, Timmy? Do you want to finish that report on time?
Right off the bat, I was like, well, how many Penitent Engines can I fit into an 1850 list?
How many of these terrible, depressing robots can I fit into one army?
Well, with 2 just combined arms detachments, I managed to get 12 in there.
What?
So there are 6 groups of 2 Penitent Engines.
Jeez.
I mean, I don't know what army that you guys play, but even the standard army is going to have a real tough time taking down 12 freaking dreadnoughts. Like, have fun with that.
Oh my God. They should give depression points is what they should give.
Depression points.
Depression points. The longer they're alive, the sadder your opposing army gets. It's like, I kind of want to kill him just because I feel so bad.
It's like you have to make a leadership check every turn, and your leadership goes down by 1 point just because you're like, I'm really depressed. I don't want to do anything. I'm just going to go back to bed.
An apathetic roll for apathy. Just like, I just don't want to do anything. This is really bumming me out.
So this army, like just a core of 12 Penitent Engines is not only bonkers to begin with, but I really thought about the tactical acumen of it. Once again, I mean, 6 individual units, which means that you can only target 6, potentially that you'd have to target 6 of them individually a turn and ignore the entire rest of the army.
Right.
But they're all running. They're all moving, then running.
Mm-hmm.
Every turn, they try and get into close combat as fast as they can. If they do get into close combat, I'd be struggling to see anything that can survive against them.
Yeah, and as they're getting closer, they've got the flamethrowers. They're just, like, burning people down.
Yeah, that's what I was saying as too. Each one has 2 flamethrowers. There are 12 of them. That is 24 heavy flamers at close range.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Like,
it's a bit.
Like, even against
heavy flamers.
Yeah, I mean, even against horde armies, that will, like, level most
Can
horde
they deep
armies.
Strike?
They can't deep strike.
Okay. Because that would be problematic.
Yeah.
And deep striking a whole bunch of heavy flamers.
So it's it was a cool idea of just having like basically a phalanx of these things at the front, just full out, just like
sadness running at you.
Just deal with 12 pits of sadness.
Yeah,
essentially.
basically.
And if they get there, I mean, even Thunderwolves, like, which are a huge popular
which
thing
are
right
known
now.
for being just the best at being murder Vikings,
Murder
and
kill
killing
machines.
everything.
If you're in if there's a Thunderwolf squad and they don't have something giving them invisibility, each one of these things has 6 instant death attacks against Thunderwolves.
That's true, and that's pretty great.
Like, that, I mean, if I was a Thunderwolf player and I saw 12 of these things, I was like, well, I don't know if I ever want my close combat unit to get close enough for close combat, because they'll strike last with power fists, because these things strike at initiative 3, and probably they'll all die before they get to strike.
Yeah, that's a pretty good chance of doing that.
I mean, even 3+ invulnerable saves, or if you do what a guy at a recent army did in Sanctuary to get 2+ invulnerable saves, you fail 1 save, and
boom,
a guy
gone.
just dies.
And
Like,
with that many attacks coming from 2 dudes, I mean, there's a pretty high chance that's going to happen.
I mean, if they get the charge, that's 12 attacks just from 2 of
At
them.
a high weapon skill, surprisingly.
At a decent weapon skill, so they'll at least be hitting. I don't know if Thunderwolves have a way to buff to 5, but they'll at least be hitting on 4s, which means they'll hit with 12 attacks, just 1 unit of 2 of them. With 12 attacks, will hit with 6 and wound with probably all of them. That's 6 possible instant death wounds. Like, that is terrifying.
Yeah, and by the time they're striking back, I mean, 3 whole points apiece. They've done a pretty sizable job.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'd be struggling to see if even one wolf could kill both of them. I don't think he could unless you got, with the AP2 Power Fist, got, like, 6s, essentially.
And even as an answer to what we were just talking about before, Wraiths got a huge bump. These would even do really well against them.
They'd even insta-kill Wraiths. Like, that's a big deal. Like, any type of instant death wounds against T5 units is hard to come by these days, and the fact that there are 12 of these things doing 6 attacks apiece.
What toughness are those? 5. That is really strong. These are 12 penitent sad engines that are coming to kill all of those things.
Essentially, like, that alone takes up a large portion of the army.
I imagine it would.
But then, like, what's it missing? Essentially, ways to pop transports. So, like, a good ranged anti-tank is what to fill the rest of the army with. I have 2 Canonesses, which are their, like, generic leaders, which are also apparently not used very often. And I've seen why, because their special characters are actually really good.
Oh, that is surprising.
Yeah, so like they have one guy that literally just makes all their shield saves a 5+ not a 6+.
Well, that's nice.
And gives them all like super bonuses in close combat.
So he basically gives them like what Necrons have now, the board-wide invul, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, like there's like that guy's called, I think, Uriah Jacobus, but like he's like excellent. I can see he's only 100 points too, which is why I'd see like a lot of people would just take him.
That makes sense. I think I know. Is that the guy on like the giant throne?
No, that's in Inquisitor.
Okay.
That's the guy in Inquisitors. Karamazov, I think, is that guy's name. But I just have 2 Canonesses, each with combi-meltas. They're just shooty Canonesses, like stock. The one that would be your warlord has a bunch of their relics, which is actually pretty good. One gives her Eternal Warrior. Another one gives her the ability to reroll basically any of her saves.
Oh.
And she has a 4+ invul save with a Rosarius.
And Eternal Warrior, that's pretty hard to kill.
Yeah, so like she can tank, like just to make the warlord essentially very difficult to dispatch. And then just them attached to regular battle system squads, just because that's their only troop choice that they can choose from.
Yep.
So there's just 4 battle sister squads since it's 2 detachments.
Okay.
They all have a Sarge with a combi-melta. They all have a melta gun. They all have a multi-melta. And then their transport is what's called an immolator, which is like their specific transports, and it's got a twin-link multi-melta. So just melta. And that combines with the 2 Canonesses.
Love that fire.
That also have combi-meltas.
Oh my god.
Just as much like ranged anti-tank as I could fit in, so like they can pop transports and drop pods, and well, I mean, I guess drop pods against Penitent Engines aren't really a big deal, but
that's true.
But maybe like some shots against flyers or any type of like even like wave serpents, something that would be able to maybe get away.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah, I mean that is the army, just the 2
Penitent
Canonesses.
Engines walking up with a huge Sisters of Battle army following behind it.
And I mean, even still, 4 Sisters of Battle squads with 4 objective secured immolators, like they can just do objective grabbing while the opponent decides how the fuck they possibly deal with 12 dreadnoughts running at them.
Because you're not going to ignore it, because like with that many dreadnoughts, you can space them out and basically just cut off all movement as you just walk down the board.
You just go like basically edge to edge essentially, and you're just like, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, there would be some that argue, they're just Penitent Engines, they're 11 armor, they're open top, you'll kill them really quick. There's still 3 hull points. Unless you're using low AP weapons, you are only getting 6s to explode them. They ignore half the damage table, so they can't be stopped with anything other than an immobilized.
Right.
And they're cheap. Like, I've played an army with 6 to 9 monstrous creatures. Like, barely half of them have ever died in a single match. This is almost double the average monstrous creature army. I would struggle to see an army that could actually deal with this.
Yeah. And it's also, again, that's like target confusion, right? That's where you're like, they're all the same. There's so many. I have to kill them soon.
Exactly. And then in the meantime, your battle sisters are just jetting around, essentially taking objectives left and right.
Multi-meltas blowing shit up.
Yeah, just like, there's a triple or quadruple melta squad that you just placed next to that tank that you got there. Or just 4 twin-linked melta guns or multi-meltas to shoot at flyers and shit like that. I mean,
basically becomes the lesser of 2 evils. What am I shooting at? The things that are killing me now, or the things that are definitely going to kill me in one turn?
Surprisingly, too, the Battle Sisters aren't that bad in the shooting phase. They're basically weaker Space Marines. They're armor 3+, like a normal Space Marine. They have their battle armor. There's the same power armor save, but they're only toughness 3. The difference is that they are BS4, so they will shoot at the same as a Space Marine, but their faith points go into giving them preferred enemy for a turn.
Really?
So actually, with the melta shots, the single melta shots like that, even the combi-meltas, that can make them pretty scary because essentially they can only miss on a 2 at that point.
That's pretty amazing. Basically giving them 2 ups for 1 turn.
Yeah, hyper accuracy, which is great.
Yeah, for all those melta weapons.
For melta guns up the ass, yes.
Man, this is corporal punishment is pretty
Corporal
mean,
punishment,
which is what you'd imagine it would be.
Yes.
You never want to be in that position to be against space nuns.
No, I mean, you never want to be taken captive either. I mean, like the worst army. Actually, there are a lot of bad armies to get taken captive for. They're pretty much all
we
bad.
kicked that up a little bit too high too quick. Most of the things in the Grimdark are bad, but man, that was a great Brown Library entry. And guys, we'll now be sneaking out of here before oh my god, that Solitaire's waking up. We gotta go. All right, we've moved off to, I don't know, we jumped through some webway portal. I think
we probably should have known where this went before we stepped through.
All the rocks are pink and like these weird gelatin creatures are floating around us. They seem pleasant. They have giant teeth. I know, probably a bad thing. But before we go today, guys, we want to talk about our Dakka of Dakkas. So some of the more outrageous comments that we found out there on the Dakka Dakka forums. And Andrew, what is our Dakka of Dakkas today?
Well, specifically, because I knew, like I said, fuck all about Sisters of Battle, pretty much. One of the actually very first people to chime in with underused units on our forum specifically gave us an entry for Sisters of Battle. In fact, he is the second entry response on the forum. So just for you, Mr. Cyanesis, he had the comment in the heavy support section, the Penitent Engine. It shares a slot with Exorcist and Retributor squads, which means that the Penitent Engine loses always.
Oh.
Again, dedicated close range melee unit, but not a monstrous creature. Only if you have like a dozen of these things and a whole lot of other crap for the opponent to shoot at, is it worth fielding these?
I like how you looked at that comment and you're like, yes.
Your wish has been granted, Cyanesis.
Like, I mean, I guess if you had, like, I don't know, some outrageous, like 12, this would work.
A dozen? You don't need a baker's dozen, just a dozen.
Just a dozen. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Cyanesis, for your comment. And guys, again, you can always check out and do some voting on our Dakka Dakka forum, which is under the name...
If you search underused units, it'll be the first thing to pop up.
All right, guys, that was episode 8 of Roll to Seize. As always, we'll be posting a new episode every month. If you'd like to download more episodes or check out other similar podcasts, head over to partialarc.com. That's arc with a C. Of course, you can email us any questions at rolltoseize@gmail.com. And of course, your impressions of Kroot. We want to hear those. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at partialarc. We throw some fun pictures up there when we go to our games and our tournaments with Warhammer. So there's always some goofy pictures we have there. You can see Andrew and I losing on a daily basis.
Yeah!
Thanks for listening, and your fun fact for the month is...
Even though it says in the grim darkness of the far future, I just realized that most of 40k is basically the Dark Ages, just all over again.
That's true. They're just like, especially Space Marines, they're like, we forgot how to use all our shit.
Like, they forgot their stuff. It's all, like, heretical stuff. You have the Inquisition. They're, like, burning people at the stake. There's witch hunts and stuff. It's basically just the Dark Ages all over again.
Yeah, it's just Space Dark Ages, which is clearly way worse than regular Dark Ages.